In the late spring of this year, as the war in Gaza rolled on, the U.S. launched an ambitious plan to provide aid to civilians in the war zone. They would use a massive floating pier to get aid to those in need. Known as Joint Logistics Over the Shore, or JLOTS, the pier capability was beset by rough seas in the Mediterranean and hindered by continuing chaos in Gaza, which prevented the safe delivery of aid. Finally, after tens of millions of dollars in costs and just 20 days of operations, the Joint Army-Navy project was shuttered by the Pentagon. While military leaders called it a success, outside analysts have characterized the effort as one hampered by uncontrollable limitations. For a deeper look into the Gaza pier effort and the future of JLOT's capability, I talked with reporter Noah Robertson recently. Here's some of our conversation. Well, thank you so much for being here, Noah. First, I just wanted to get a little bit of a better sense of why did the U.S. build this pier off of Gaza, and tell us a little bit about how it functioned.
Well, happy to be here. Thank you for doing this. I think the story of the Gaza pier really starts around March, but even before then. President Biden gave a State of the Union earlier this year in which he faced immense political pressure to do something about the plight of the Palestinian people. The UN World Food Program has been tracking the food scarcity that's present within the Strip amid Israel's war to try to root out Hamas after the attack last October, and many of them, almost all, 96%, are facing acute food insecurity around that time. So the president was facing pressure domestically to try to do something to try to relieve that pain, and came up with a mission to establish the military's own humanitarian corridor. They would do this not by getting food in through the land or air domains, which they had been doing since the beginning of the war, but rather through their own pier that they constructed off the 25-mile coast on Gaza. They would do this by creating a system called Joint Logistics Over the Shore, or JLOTS as it's also known. And then in 2 months, the military would have to build this and then establish its own maritime corridor to try to deliver aid into the Strip. They were able to succeed in this and then finish and establish the pier on the shore by around mid-May.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about why this effort has received so much criticism, especially recently?
I think the big criticism comes from two places. First, those who are supportive of the mission to have the military go in and establish this humanitarian corridor, but don't feel like it's gone to plan. I think the second bit would be people who don't feel like the military should be involved in this mission to start out with.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more details about why this is being dismantled and any future plans that we can expect to see with this?
I think the answer from the military's perspective would be that the mission was accomplished, and Central Command went out and briefed at the end of the Gaza Pier's mission to say that there was a mission complete status for it, that it was no longer needed. Their evidence for that, in part, was the 20 million pounds or so of aid that was able to get in. They cited this as the most efficient and also the safest route for aid to Gaza to the point in the war. The military isn't being specific about how long it will take for it to be dismantled, but suffice it to say that the pier's operation is over. They do plan to redeploy the assets at some point, though they haven't exactly said where, and the total cost is coming in under budget, they say, but they also haven't been specific about the number, except to say that it will be less than the $230 million that they quoted.
Thanks, Noah. To get another perspective on the Gaza pier mission, Military Times managing editor Jeff Zazulowicz recently spoke to a veteran with experience with JLOT's capability. Have a look.
We're joined now by Keith Robbins. He's a retired Army lieutenant colonel who has a lot of experience with the Joint Logistics Over the Shore, or JLOT's, capability that was used for the Gaza aid pier. Before his retirement in 2007, Robbins was the JLOT's program manager for U.S. Transportation Command. Keith, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
So I spoke to you and some other retired officers before the aid pier was stabbed into the Gaza beach there. A lot of folks shared some concerns about the security of the U.S. service members doing the mission, the assorted, 1,000 soldiers and sailors. Thankfully, a lot of those concerns never manifested into anything severe during the mission. But in general, looking back at the aid pier mission and this deployment of JLOTS, as an officer whose life, at least at the end of his tour, was really dedicated to the capability, what are your main takeaways from the pier mission in Gaza?
I think two things. One, on the decision to implement that capability. As you may recall, when we talked before, I had a lot of reservations about the capability of it based on the conditions. the weather conditions, the coastal conditions, and that sort of thing, the sea state, that mainly, because the capability in the Army system is not meant to be handled in higher sea states like sea state 3 and above. Much like the conditions that they were going to experience in Gaza. The mission itself, I thought, was a great application for that capability. You need to get large volumes of supplies, goods over the shore to folks that needed the shore, and you don't have a port or any other capability to do it. JLOTS is the perfect capability to handle that. But it has to be put in the right place in order for it to be successful. And then that's what we saw come out of this. It got over there, they put it up, and they got it going. But as soon as the weather changed and got more severe and those sea state conditions rose, they started to have issues. And that was not to be unexpected. So I think in reality, in the end, it did what it was supposed to do. It may not have met success to the level of expectations of those in senior leadership, but I'm sure it met, from what I saw, it met success and above expectation given the conditions that they were operating under.